And we are in book 3 on interior conversation, which is kind of Christian speak for meditation or contemplation. Well, that's another word. And we're on the chapter called Avoiding Exterior Things. Right. And he's been talking about how much more at peace you are if you don't connect yourself in a needy sort of way to the external world, and how that reading and learning lots of scripture is not the point, but rather digesting that and enlightening the mind by making it a part of you. And we talked a little bit about the different approaches to that. The traditional Christian approach is sort of to work on aspects of yourself, attributes of yourself, by imitating Christ, hence even the very name of the book, The Imitation of Christ. And Vedanta takes kind of a different tack. Vedanta goes more from the direction of be aware of the image of God that created you, that is within you, that you are. And by gazing at the Lord, you will naturally lose your troublesome attributes, your selfishness, your concern for body and mind. He starts off today, interestingly enough, he says, "It will go badly for those who curiously inquire after the affair of humans and yet give little thought to the way to serve me." Right? So to put all of your energy in keeping track of the external world and not being aware of your internal space, that it's not going to go well for you. You're going to get caught into the affairs of people, which means somebody's going to be in a bad mood and be disrespectful for you, and somebody else is going to forget to thank you, and somebody else is going to speak poorly of you, and all of the, you'll start to build your sense of self based on what other people are thinking or saying about you, and then you get caught in a turmoil. And so the majority of your energy has to be spent internally in developing that internal knowledge of your divine self, your divinity, and moving your sense of being from the mind into the heart, the unchanging aspect of self. And in that way, you don't get caught up, and you can serve somebody without getting pulled off balance. You can love somebody without getting pulled off balance, and you can be criticized without being pulled off balance. So the internal world is your most important space. It is your refuge. We don't run to mama, to our earthly mama, for our help. We don't run to our earthly friends. We don't run to our best friend. We run to the interior shrine for our comfort and for our strength. That way, when our earthly mama is taken away, or when our friends move away, or when our friends stop being our friends, we're not lost. That we're still stable and still carrying on with being those men and women of steady wisdom, as the Bhagavad Gita refers to it. So it will go badly for those who curiously inquire after the affairs of humans and yet give little thought of the way to serve me. The time will come when I, the master of teachers and lord of the angels, will appear to listen to the accounts of everyone and to examine the conscience of all. Right? It's actually that presence of that divinity within you that gives you a conscience. It is that image of God which is always exerting itself in a very gentle way within, that's causing you to look for love, causing you to feel bad when you treat your friend badly, causing you to want to make up with the people you've harmed. That part of you that makes you want to apologize. That is the presence of God. They're sort of talking as if God, or as if the divine beloved, is standing off somewhere watching you, and he'll check in on you later and look at your conscience. Your conscience is because of his presence. So he's already aware of the content of your conscience, because he is in fact the cause of conscience. Then will Jerusalem be searched with lanterns, and the hidden things of darkness in everyone's soul be brought to light, when all excuses and vain arguments shall be silenced. I am he who in an instant can so elevate the minds of the humble that they can grasp the reasons for eternal truth more perfectly than others who, lacking humility, have studied 10 years in school. Right? So really what he's talking about there, here comes Felix, what he's really talking about there is those who are charged by egoism versus those who are charged by the presence, by an awareness of the presence within. Right? So the humble, those who are not egotistical, meaning that they're not heavily identified with body and mind, they can what's that word? When you take something into yourself, they can absorb. It's another A word, but I can't remember it. When you oh goodness gracious.
Assimilate?
Assimilate. Thank you very much, Pavitra. Perfect. I was waiting to get it because it's perfect. It's the exact word I need. I couldn't think of it. Assimilate spiritual teachings. You know, the less egoism that there is about you, the less you've identified with body mind, the more you have a natural understanding of the scriptures, the more the scriptures are able to teach you and show you. But if you are based on body mind, you know, and you get your value of self from the qualities of body and mind, the scriptures will stay very two-dimensional. You won't understand the deeper aspects of it. It will stay at the body mind level. It won't actually go into the spirit level because you're unaware of that. It's out of your experience. For I teach without the sound of words. Ramana Maharshi. I teach without the sound of words, just being in the presence of the divine, right? When you, the most beautiful aspect of our meditation and spiritual practice is practicing to the point where finally you do experience some of that profound peace that passes understanding, that presence that's heavy with isness. You know, it's a silence, but it's a pregnant silence. It's a silence that's full. It's full of the infinite potential of everything at once, but it's absolutely still because in that form, as it were, it's in perfect balance. It's in perfect harmony. So there's no shifting and changing. There's no noise or attributes to catch your attention. So I teach without the sound of words, without conflict of opinions, right? Because opinions come when there's boundary. Opinions come when there's limit. And this silent inward teaching that we get from being in the presence is without words. It's beyond words. It's a knowing as we grow. And it's not something that's within the confines of the changing world, time, space, causation. It's something that comes in from outside of that. And it comes in as a gentle knowing, a remembering of something that you seems like you always knew, but somehow just had never recognized. Without conflict of opinions, without striving for honor, and without obstinate arguments. Because truth is like love. You know it when you see it. Or like beauty, you know it when you see it. Right? And so truth is the same. Someone says something true to you, you don't even have to wonder about it. You just know, you know. I remember in spiritual life, that was one of my favorite things about the things I was learning from you know, the Vedanta. I remember telling my friend Philip at one point, I said, I feel like somebody went into my mind and pulled out all of my aha moments, outlined them, wrote me an essay, and put it back in my head. So everything's familiar, but I could never have said it before. You know, it's like I thought that I felt like I knew all of these things, but I could never have put them in that format. I could never have made sense of them. And so this is how the Christ teaches within us, this universal Christ that Richard Rohr writes about, you know, the Christ that breaks the boundaries of just one religion. I teach you to despise earthly things, right? To not run to those things for your pleasures and for your identity and for your comfort and for your refuge. You know, do not turn toward them to get anything from them. I have taught you to despise earthly things, to weary of the things of this present life, by recognizing that no matter what it is, it ends. That no matter how wonderful it was when it was in your hand, it runs through your fingers, and you're left with nothing but a memory that only makes you want more. And so grow weary of that. How do you grow weary? By being aware, by watching its influence in your life and seeing, all of these things that you have gone to outside of yourself to take refuge, whether it's, going out with friends or going and having a drink or going to the movies or taking your vacations. Not that anything there is wrong in and of itself, right? It's not important like that. What's not helpful is when you think that you are actually giving yourself something with those things, or that you're actually finding refuge or finding a solution in those things. You're not, because you're beholden to them, because they will end and you'll have to work for them again to get them back again. And your life will become a life of slavery where you're serving the needs of the body and serving the needs of the mind that are under constant flux, constant change, and never staying secure, never staying fed, never staying satisfied. So to weary of the things of this present life and to look and to long for what is eternal, that one unchanging thing deep within you, that sense of I am, that isness, that no matter what period in your life, you knew you were you. That truth is the eternal. That is the image of God that was placed within you at your creation from the Christian perspective. When you were created, God created you in his image. That is what his image is. Pure love, pure wisdom, existence, right? And those are unchanging. They do not change. They are a song with a single note that has been hummed for eternity outside of time. So look for and long for what is eternal, to shun honors, right? Because honors also come and go. And they're meaningless. All they do is put your focus on yourself. You're always concerned with people, making sure that people show you the proper honor and the proper respect, and being terribly offended when they don't. So don't go after those things, because they limit you. They make you small, and they actually prevent love, because they prevent people from being able to connect with you, because you'll judge people. And you won't let those who have as much honor as you do be a part of your circle. You look down your nose at folks, and that's a terribly painful situation to go through. I've been there back in my yuppie days when I had my color consultant at Nordstrom's. Oh my goodness, yes. To bear injuries patiently, because they also change, they also go away, right? They do not last. So yes, you're sick. Yes, you're suffering. First of all, know that sickness belongs to the body and not to you, and it gives you a little bit of space between them. You can know that you can put your attention on that or not put it on that. Right? And to not get in despair. It'll end. It came, it'll go. Everything that comes goes. Everything that is composed must decompose. And so just wait. Be patient. To place complete confidence in me, in the divine, the beloved, and above all, to love me with all of your heart, right? Which is really the same as saying, understand that I am all of the love that you have. Find me. Go inside. Don't look at the expressions of love that you give outside. Look to the source of the love that you feel inside. When you see someone that you love, don't be enamored of the object. Be enamored of the love, and realize it's coming from within you and reflecting off of the qualities of that person that remind you of what? Of the divine beloved. Right? Anytime we see the qualities of the divine beloved in somebody, the love that we naturally have reflects off of those, shines, sparkles in them back to us. And we experience an awareness of Satchitananda within us. That wonderful Swami, I can't remember his name, it was many years ago, came to the dinner table in San Francisco. And I remember him telling Swami at the beginning of the meal, he says, I think I have realized something very important about desire. And Swami Puttananda got very interested and said, oh, you must tell us. And so he said, yes, I have found that when you fulfill a desire, you feel bliss. And you think it was because of the object that fulfilled your desire. He says, but I've come to know that that bliss is what happens when you fulfill a desire, because for a moment after you have fulfilled a desire, you are without a desire. And in that state of desirelessness, in that peace for a moment, you become aware of your inner bliss, of your nature. And it doesn't last very long, because it doesn't take very long before you have a new desire that you've moved on to, something else that has grabbed your attention. And so the pleasure of fulfilling desires comes from the silence that follows the fulfillment, and not from the object. So this is what Jesus is teaching here. Love me above all. Love me with all of your heart. Recognize I am the source of everything you hope to get and everything that you have gotten from the objects of the external world, whether they're people, places, or things. There was a certain person who, by loving me with his whole soul, learned the things of God and inspired many by the wonders of the things he spoke. For he profited more by not pursuing the study of high learning. Right? This, Brother Lawrence fits that ticket right there. Of course, he wasn't around when Jesus was around. But right, we read him not because of the marvel of he was a very humble man. He was a cook in the monastery, a cook with a heavy conscience. And yet we speak of him. Why? Because of the amazing presence of God that he experienced, and how he was transformed just living in that presence without any effort of his own part, he said. Simply being in the presence was it. For he profited more by not pursuing the study of high learning. To some I speak of ordinary things, to others of special things. To some I appear in signs and figures, while to others I reveal the mysteries in a flood of light. Right? So God gives to you as you are. He'll meet you where you are, touch you as you need to be touched, and teach you as you need to be taught. So we see that when he came as Ramakrishna, we also see there that Ramakrishna taught people in different ways. You know, he taught one person that he should have defended his guru, and he tells somebody else in the exact same situation that he shouldn't have defended his guru, because one, it was a matter of pride, and the other, it was a matter of cowardice. And so he taught different things based on the disposition, based on the inner reality of that person. And so Jesus is doing that for us, even as we read these scriptures, teaching us, showing us the special things that we need to hear and that we need to know. I learned this in a weird way, actually, because I remember in my early years, I thought that I knew best in many, many things. And one of them was public speaking. And I used to sit there and listen to the Swami in charge and his lecture. And I would just be like, oh my God, there was no introduction. There was no body. There was no conclusion. That was rambling. And I would just felt so critical of it. And I remember going out into the lobby after the lecture, and people were coming out, and one of my old friends, Felder, came out of the auditorium, and he just came over and he shook my hand and he said, boy, wasn't that just the greatest lecture in the world today? I was so inspired by that. And I sat there, and Mother just gave me a good swift nudge in the ribs. And I was like, oh my God, because of my arrogance, because of my own judgmentality, I missed the beauty that Felder got. I didn't see the message that he got because my ego had gotten in the way. And that's exactly what we started out talking about. Egoism will prevent the scriptures from going deeply, and you being able to enjoy the presence deeply, right? You can always tell when ego's doing that, because you're trying to be comfortable in the presence of God based on how you've been performing, how well you've been behaving, right? When you start going into the presence with that idea, that's egoism. You have this wrong notion that there's some way that you could be a good person, that some way you could have done something worthy of the attention of God, right? But it's not that. By grace, it's not that. Good Lord, what a horrible pressure of life that is, to be in that state. But we accept grace and grace alone. And so when we go into the presence of the beloved, we focus on the love of the beloved. And we know that all is well because of that. not because of our own performance. In books, the same voice and the same words appear, but some will get more out of them than others. For it is I alone who teach the truth, who search the hearts. No thoughts are hidden from me. I, the prime mover of all actions, giving to everyone as I see fit. Do you see? This is the self. This is a description of the Christ, which is the self of everyone. Right? He is the battery that powers the mind and powers the body. So it's not that you have to share anything with him. He's seeing it. That's the funny thing. It is actually Christ who is seeing, who is living your life in you. He knows it before you know it, because you are a made-up entity, right? Composed of body mind, thinking that you're separate and apart from the whole. This egoism. So you take responsibility for your life as expressed through the body mind with no knowledge that you are in fact the divine self, that you are the soul, the singular soul of the world who is acting through a particular body and a particular mind. So really contemplation, prayer, meditation is a recognition of that, a silencing of the ego with the awareness of the presence of love that is the only motivating force in the universe. And that all of these actions that he gives as he sees fit, that's the karma that your mind holds, right? The record of rights and wrongs that have happened. And they get expressed as that light shines through the individual mind and becomes colored and focused and reduced to a smallness of a singular personality, a singular being. And so in meditation, we let go of that. And we try and let that ego disappear until we feel that intense presence of love that is, in fact, the image of God. Right, chapter 44, on not drawing to ourselves exterior things. Christ, it is best for you to be ignorant. All right, let's see where he's going with that. It is best for you to be ignorant, my child, about many things, considering yourself as dead to this world, and one to whom all the world is crucified. Let many things you hear go in one ear and out the other, focusing your mind on those things which pertain to your peace. Right? So not to become a worldly person, not to have this idea that you're going to get or become something through your collection of worldly objects or worldly knowledge, relative knowledge, the knowledge of mind, the things that are relative. Don't go there for your value. Staying ignorance, he's not talking about what the Vedantist means when they say ignorance. Vedanta, when they say ignorance, they mean not knowing what you are, not knowing that you are the image of God, not knowing that you are a child of God, the beloved. To not know that's Vedantic ignorance. Here he's talking about secular knowledge, relative knowledge. And he's saying, it's better not to go and collect that, not to fill your head with those things, right? St. Paul says, knowledge puffs up, but love builds up. That's the difference. If you go and you collect worldly relative knowledge, you get puffed up. You think you know something, and you want everybody to know you know something. And so you're always the first one to answer questions, right or wrong. You're the one that hogs the conversation because you think you have the interesting things to share and say, right? That's what happens when you collect worldly knowledge as an object to be desired, a thing that's important. And so he's saying, no, better than that is ignorance. You stay with the things that give you peace, right? Know that peace that passes understanding that's within you, and the things that make you aware of that, the things that help you stay in that space, the things that help you realize that space. Those are the things, the spiritual knowledge, that's better for you. It is also more profitable for you to look the other way from such things as displease you. Right? He's basically saying, find your peace within and don't let external things either attract you or repel you. right? Let them be what they are. Let them go through you, as it were, right? Let them go through you. This is a weird example, but it came to my head, so I'll share it. There was a time when I was very cold here. I was out walking and the wind was blowing, and it was one of those icy days, where the air just had an icy quality to it. And my whole body was tensed, because I was literally resisting it, literally trying to push it away, trying to not experience that cold. And my shoulders were starting to hurt and my neck was starting to hurt. And I became aware of this resistance. And I just tried. I said, relax into it, accept it, let it be cold. It doesn't matter. And I sort of relaxed, and I sort of imagined, instead of the wind hitting me and hitting resistance, I just imagined that it went through me without touching me. Very interesting change in experience, a very different feeling. And not one I can really describe or talk about, but try that as a thing. When there's something unpleasant, don't resist it. Invite it in. Serve it tea, as it were. Let it go through you and let it not affect you. Just let it be. So it is also more profitable for you to look the other way from such things as displease you, leaving to everyone to hold the opinion that seems best, rather than to enter into heated disputes. Right? Swami Prabhupada taught me this. Have as few opinions about things as possible. That's the way to internal peace. Don't form an opinion about something unless it's necessary. If they're talking about painting the monastery purple or painting the monastery beige, don't have an opinion. Don't decide something. Why? Because when they make their choice, you're fine. Oh, okay, they're painting it beige. That's cool. If you form an opinion and it's not the one they choose, then you've got to deal with it. You got to clean up the mess you've made. So don't have an opinion about things that you don't need to have an opinion about. Those things that you do, well, have it, but don't be attached to it. But in general, form as few opinions about things as you possibly can. That is, when somebody has a different opinion than you, honor it. They're a human being. They have a mind. The presence of God is within them, and that's what their experience and their mind has led them to. Do I agree with it or not agree with it? Well, how important is it to make a decision on that? If they're doing their best and they're harming no one, let them think as they think. That may be their scaffolding for reaching their realization. Your scaffolding is going to be different, but it will reach the same realization. So don't get in a huff. Let them be as they are, you be as you are, and go forward. Don't enter into a heated dispute about it, because we all know heated disputes do not change opinions. You just start hating each other and getting angry at each other, but you both are still maintaining the same opinion you had before. So know that before you've heated it up, right? Don't get heated up. Just allow people to have their space. You take your space. And when things have to be decided, if you don't attach to your way as being the best, then you can hear their argument and you can hear how they got to the conclusion that they're at. And you can understand where they are, and you can have a respect for that because they went through many of the same processes and efforts that you went through to come up with your own idea. So give space for that. And if you can do that with love, if you can do that and hold respect for the other person, there's a good chance that you can take a step forward together at that point and meet at a better third, as it were. If you are concerned only with God's view in the matter and are pleasing in his sight, you will consider it a small thing to be worsted in an argument. Right? That's the truth. If you've got that inner peace and you sit in the presence, these winds of opinion don't really move you. You're not that concerned about it. You have what is necessary, right? You have your internal peace. You have the presence of God. You know love, you know beauty, you know wisdom, and you can sit and abide just about anything. These are great times to practice these things. These are perfect times for this. Mother is obviously training us in these things right now. Disciple, Dear Lord, to what a state we have brought ourselves. At a temporal loss, we become utterly miserable, toiling and expending much energy, whereas how quickly a spiritual loss is forgotten and scarcely is ever even recalled. Right? So, what is that temporal? He says a temporal loss, a loss within time, a loss of the things that we're going to lose anyway. Right? The loss of things we're going to lose anyway. He says we become utterly miserable. Oh my God, my car got totaled today. Oh, I'm so miserable. Oh, my Mercedes got a scratch today. Oh, I lost my iPhone. We become utterly miserable. But if we sleep through a meditation, oh, I missed my meditation today. Oh well, we just move on. If we don't think of God all day long, it's like, oh goodness, I haven't thought of God all day long. Oops, forgot him again. Right? We don't worry too much about those things that are a spiritual loss. And this is how we stay ignorant of our nature, right? Because we don't feel that longing. We don't feel that pang. Every Ramakrishna, you look at his life, it says that every evening he would roll on the ground in a restless suffering, saying, Mother, another day has passed and I have not yet realized you, I have not yet seen you. And it was such a misery for him that he would just writhe in sadness about that. There was a desperation to know God within him, right? But and that desperation's within us, we just don't recognize it as that desperation. We think it's a desperation for something outside of ourselves, to get something from this world. And so we get motivated for that. And we go trying and trying and trying, caught in our cycles. We become all absorbed in the things in which profit us little or nothing at all. But our soul's salvation, the thing of vital importance, is neglected and passed over. How easily humans tend downward to outward things, right? Yeah, the Divine Mother says that. It is the nature of the mind to go down, right? It's the nature of the mind. That's why if you're not careful, every gossipy conversation ends in negativity, right? That's why she says, don't let your mind become idle, because all of the bad tendencies of the body and mind will come forward at that time. So we become all absorbed in those things which profit us little or nothing at all, but our soul's salvation, our freedom, our liberation, we forget entirely about that. And it's the thing of vital importance to us. It's neglected and passed over. And we get involved in lust and greed and all of those things of the world, right? All those egotistical pastimes, which he calls things that tend downward to outward things. But unless they sharply recover themselves, they are content to dwell on material interests and pleasures. Unless they recover themselves. Right? A wonderful way of talking about finding your nature, finding out who you are. Recover it, that which you have lost, that which you have forgotten, that which you have ceased to give your attention to. Recover it, find it, and hold on to it. Right? Don't dwell. The counter to that is don't dwell on external things. Don't let your constant reaction to the world become a permanent pastime, to where you're just sitting there reacting all the time, living a life of anxiety and stress, always busy, always having to accomplish, always having to get or fix or try or experience, and never having just to sit and be silent and take care of yourself inwardly. Chapter 45. On not being too credulous, knowing how easily we offend in speech. The disciple, help me, O Lord, in my trouble, for any human assistance is worthless. How often have I relied on the faithlessness of human beings, only to be disappointed? Yet how often have I found loyalty where I least expected it? How foolish, therefore, to put our complete hope in human beings, for it is only in you, dear Lord, that the righteous may trust without fear of betrayal. You, O Lord, are greatly to be blessed in all things that befall us. How weak and unstable we are, right? How weak and unstable we are. Why? Because we exist because of our attachment to changing things, the things that are always shifting and that can provide us with no stability, can provide us with no refuge, can provide us with nothing that lasts, that we need. And how easily and quickly we are deceived and changed, right? Deceived. Deceived means believing things to be what they seem to be rather than what they are, right? Not seeing God in anything, believing that objects are separate and apart and that they do hold something that looks like it would be good for food, that looks like it would give us wisdom, that looks like it would make us like God, that it would fulfill us, right? The very three-step process of Eve in the garden. Look out and find the world beautiful, attractive. Step into that, into your senses, and let it develop a want. Oh, that looks like it would be good to eat. And then let it tell you the lie. What is the lie? Oh, that's going to fulfill me. That's going to give me wisdom and make me like God. And so then what do? You take and you eat of it. And now you're fully identified with your senses, your body, your mind. And you're looking to the outside world, to the things of the senses to fulfill you and to make you like God. When in fact, within you is the Garden of Eden. And you were already created in the image of God. But by stepping into the senses, defining yourself accordingly, and running after their desires, you have forgotten that you were created in the image of the beloved, that pure love, pure wisdom, and the peace that you seek is within you, ready-made. So you forget this and you are deceived and changed from immortal, ever-free beloved to hungry, needy, selfish. Who is there who can behave so carefully and so prudently in all things as not to be sometimes mistaken or perplexed? Certainly very few. But those who have complete confidence in you, O Lord, seeking you in the simplicity of their hearts, do not slip away from you so easily. Right? Those who keep their eyes, their sense of self in the shrine of the heart, the cave of the heart, according to St. John of the Cross. Those who keep their presence there, keep themselves, their awareness of their being there, in a constant communion with their nature, with God, with the beloved, right? You can't get pulled out of there too easily. It takes some work to get you out of that space, right? That is how to deal with all of this, actually. And if they should lapse into trouble, no matter how deeply they become involved, you, Lord, are ever ready to rescue them and comfort them. This is another promise right there. God is always ready to rescue and to comfort. So no matter what condition you're in, no matter how bad your behavior's been, no matter the size of the mistake, the divine is always ready to rescue you and to comfort you. You don't have to be afraid to accept that comfort, right? And I say that because there's this very odd thing about our karma that we carry in our mind. It makes us feel unworthy. When God has told us, you are heirs, you're not beggars. When God has told you clearly, I will always be with you. I'm always ready to rescue and always ready to comfort. And so you cannot base your image of self on the things that are done, the things that of the mind and body. Always understand that your permission to be with your beloved comes from the unconditioned love of your beloved for you. I am always ready to rescue. I am always ready to comfort. O Lord, you are ever ready to rescue them and comfort them, for you never abandon the soul who completely trusts in you. Right? And even the soul that doesn't trust in him, God doesn't abandon that either. You abandon God, but you will feel like God has abandoned you, right? Because that's the nature of egoism. God has abandoned me. God doesn't love me, right? And you hold this little torch inside as if you deserved to be loved and if you deserved all of these things. And so you say that God has left you, but in fact, you have left God. You are the one that has forgotten, who is not looking properly. It is rare indeed that one finds a friend so faithful as to stick with us through thick and thin. You, O Lord, are the most faithful in all things, and there is none other but you. That's the highest truth right there. There is none other but you. God is everywhere present, always perfect. God has become all things, the multiplicity, just as the dreamer becomes the dream and chooses a particular from which to experience it. So God has created all of this and entered into it through us, each one of us, an image of God, an image of the beloved. Right? In our dreams, we become one person. In this dream, the dream of our waking world, God has become everything, everyone, consciously with his own awareness. And how wise was the holy Saint Agatha, who said, "My mind is solidly established in and grounded upon Christ." And knowing well I am the image of the beloved. I am of the nature of silence, still, perfectly at peace, contented in love, full of wisdom. In that stillness of knowing, I sit, fully established, solidly established. I do not believe myself to be anything. I do not believe myself to need anything. I do not hear my hungers or my thirsts. I am present. I'm fulfilled. I'm enough. Solidly established in and grounded upon the Christ, the presence of God. If only this were so with me, I would not be prey to so many fears and anxieties, nor would the unkind words of others move me. Right? So just again, establishing the man of steady wisdom, the woman of steady wisdom, is that person who knows themselves, who has explored their interior world, knows what is what, and has found that presence of unchanging love, that presence of unchanging wisdom, that presence itself, existence. There is no one who can foresee future events or take precautions against future desires, right? Living in the future, which is what you do when you think that you've got something that has to be done or get fixed, or you make plans about things. Living in the future is what causes that anxiety he just talked about, that fear, because you don't have the future and you can't control the future and you can't determine the future, and yet you need the future to be a particular way for your contentment. This is why you're anxious. This is why you're anxious. If even approaching evils can hurt us, how much greater the wound of those that are unlooked for, right? And just to say, you're extremely vulnerable if you feel the need to control the future. If you're depending on future outcomes for your happiness, you've got reason to be afraid, because not only is the unknown going to come to you, right? But how about the things that you're not even expecting? Things that you didn't even account for, right? But why have I not made better provision for my wretched self? Right? Because you think that there's a provision to be made. You're not counting, you're not spending the moment with the divine, right? And so because of that, you can't see, you can't find your peace. And why have I so readily put my trust in others? Why have I believed in something outside of myself that was going to take care of me, or was going to give me something, or feed me, or give me refuge? Right? God has told us from the beginning, take refuge in me alone. The Divine Mother says, take refuge in no one else. I am your refuge. I am your mother. Right? Why did I so readily put my trust in others? Truly, because we are frail and weak human beings. Yes, indeed. We've identified with ourselves with something guaranteed to fail. And yet we want security in it. You know, we've identified with a body that's guaranteed to end in the grave or in the oven. You know, we've identified with something sure to fail. And yet we want security. You know, we want happiness from those things. What foolishness. Yes, weak is right. You've identified with something that is destined to lose. Though many think of and speak of us as angels. Well, yes. You know, we all make believe, right? How much graffiti do you see? You know, Terry and Sam forever. You know, well, I'll love you forever. I'll be with you forever. We'll be friends forever. We talk in those terms. We think in those terms. We set our ideal in those terms. And all the while, identifying with everything that can never be forever. Yes, we're weak. Yes, we're silly. And indeed, we're stupid. Or in the words of Swami Prabhupada, he had such a wonderful way of pronouncing it. He says, do you know why you haven't realized God? He would say to the auditorium, he would sit, he wouldn't say anything for a moment. It is because you are dumb. And he would just let that word just thud in that big echoey auditorium. It is because you are dumb. In whom can I believe, O Lord, except in you? What? You know, the only thing that has been true to me my whole life is my being, my I am, my sense of the self. For you alone are the truth. You are the only thing I can know without knowing anything else. I am. Who can neither deceive nor be deceived. On the other hand, all people are liars, weak, unstable, and subject to fail, especially in speech, so that even what seems to be true, we should not be too ready to believe. And this whole world is a delusion. There is no truth here. Right? The only truth is within you. Everything else will change its story constantly. You may say it's true that that's a lamp. Come back in 200 years. You know, come back sometime. That lamp won't be a lamp. It lied to you about its nature. Right? Number 4, wisely have warned us to be on our guard against human beings, and often one's enemies. You know what? And often one's enemies will be the members of his very own household, and that we are to be wary of if anyone should tell us, look, here is the Messiah, or there he is. This I have learned at great expense, and I hope it will make me more cautious in the future. Right? So putting our trust in others and in things outside of ourselves is going to be disastrous, potentially, for us. So someone asks, what text is this? This is on not being too credulous. It's chapter 43 of the book, The Imitation of Christ. All right. Those who confide their secrets to others, cautioning them not to repeat them to a soul, often cannot keep their own secrets, but betray both themselves and their confidants. From such foolish talk and such imprudent people, defend me, O Lord, that I may not become their victim or commit the same fault. Grant that my words be true and constant. Hmm. That's the person of steady wisdom right there. Grant that my words are true and constant. So I'm not enticed by the things of changing, by having constantly changing ideas and opinions of them. I don't say nice things to someone's face and then turn around and say the opposite to another face, right? Let my words be true and constant, and drive far from me a sly and malicious tongue. Yes, a sly and malicious tongue. A clever person. No, don't let that be me. Let me always be straightforward, motivated by love and wisdom. Let me always be looking for the good in others and fanning the flames. Let me not see the faults of others, but my own faults, that I might find inward peace. What I am unwilling to endure, I certainly ought to use all means to avoid myself. Right? And we'll stop there for the evening.